Hi, everybody. It's Black Spring on a bit of a late night or a moonlight stream with a nugget. Just have a couple of things and maybe some commentary if you're around. Hi, everybody. And if you're out there, if you're around, this is Black Spring with Autumn, and it's a bit after hours. It's pretty late, no matter where you are in the world. It is pretty late, and I just a couple of things I want to go over, and I will be right back right after this. So thank you so much for tuning in on this segment, and I'll be right back. All right. Hello, and hello to Old Head Deuce. Thank you so much for tuning in on this very much late night session here. I just have a couple of things, but I think I just want to start out with some commentary first. And before we do that, all right. So go ahead and get started here. Um, I don't know. I kind of started out yesterday. I started out with a little bit of commentary, and it appeared it was on the Juneteenth celebration or a bit of the controversy behind that. But it seems like there's even more of there's another battle that's going on. And I've mentioned this before about the amount of infighting that seems to be going on amongst conservatives, and dare I say the word black conservatives. And I've said this before. Unfortunately, I think that there are too many people that they are just too emotionally attached to the word black. And I think that that's no different than if you're a free thinker, if your mind is free and you can and you consider yourself an individual, why is there such an attachment to that, to what I consider a government alias? Is what it's a government handle. I mean, there's not, I mean, I think I can say this objectively, that there's not a, black is not a nationality. It's not. Can you show me on the map where there's a nation, there's a black nation? Where is it? Because I always think people want to go to war if two black conservative women are having a dispute and somebody that happens to be a white conservative gets involved, then here you go, you got this whole cannibal ra- racism, dismal conversation, conflict all over again. It's like we just cannot. I don't know how many affirmations. If you identify as black or African American, who would you be without that word in front of, without that handle, without that government alias? I think people really need to start thinking about that. Am I saying that you shouldn't have any pride about who you are, or should you not have dignity, but should it be wrapped up? Should it be wrapped up in a word, or should it be wrapped up in something that maybe some people 60 years, you know, maybe gave some power to? Should it be wrapped up in that? I think you're doing yourself a great disservice, and a great, I mean, I consider myself to be an American. I just, I don't need, and I don't even consider I don't want to even say I'm a black conservative. I'm a black this, I'm a black that. I'm just, I'm an individual, and I'm not going to say that I'm this, or that this comes first. And I just, it's not worth it. There's no, there's no, it's what you make it. It's who you are, and who would you be without a government alias? Because to me, that's what the word black is. That's what it is. I think somebody posted this a while back, and if I can find it for you, I'd love to play it right now. It actually, the first time I ever saw this, and it came from, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the movie. It's The Women of Brewster's Place. And I think it was Cicely Tyson who actually acted out. She was the mother of a daughter who was, to me, she had this Pan African aura, or new identification that she latched onto. And it's got to be one of the most apropos, and she did it with such conviction, but I'm not even sure if she believed it. But what she said, it was, to me, it was one of the most powerful quotes from a movie that I think is even relevant, that's relevant in real life. I have not understood why even this generation, or last couple of generations, have given that word so much power. And it's sabotaging everything that they do. They can't think, they can't be, they're not even free from that. I mean, people are talking about Juneteenth, this teenth, and this teenth, and that teenth, and that holiday. Well, who cares? If you're being controlled, or if your whole identity is wrapped up in some type of handle, or some government alias, or some control group alias, then who are you? You can't stand alone. I mean, and sometimes when you stand, you have to stand alone. And sometimes the person that stands alone is actually, they fare well. But if you've got this some type of anchor, or you try to create a buffer between you and the rest of the world, and you're really selling yourself short. I just don't know why. I just don't know why there's so much emotional attachment to that word. Or for those that, that use, put the African on the front of it. Or I just, if you know who you are, it's going to be more about, I think it's going to be more about, it's going to be reflected in, I think, in your actions more than some word you. It's like people have internalized this word, and it's almost like they're nothing without. I'm going to tell you, it carries way too much weight. It has way too much power, because when you have an administration, a guy that basically tells you that you aren't bleep bleep bleep, because that's basically, to me, what it meant when Biden said to people on the Breakfast Club, from the basement, the Breakfast Club, that if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. Well, to me, that's not what he actually meant. He actually meant something. He said he means that you're not a four-letter word, is what that's what that means. That's what it means. But it looks like a lot of people seem to think they aren't anything if they're not black. They can't stand alone, or it's not enough to be one thing. It's not enough to be American. It's not enough to be, you got to be that. And to me, call me crazy, you're controlled. You're, as long as you are under, as long as you're trying to float your boat, as long as you got that anchor. I mean, they say it like the way people use this word, and they flaunt it and they defend it. It's not a golden parachute. No, it's not. It is not a golden parachute. My point about, pride and dignity, if you can lead, if you're a leader, if you're excellent, then be, wouldn't that be more evident if you are leading and are excellent amongst, to the world, and not capping yourself off, or I just think that this country is emotionally balkanized, and I'm using that because you're broken off into, they've already divided people emotionally. So then they've managed to do it. They've managed to do it with these groups and these names and these aliases, and this person wants to be this, and it's like, why do you want to fight your whole life? You have no peace if you're fighting all the time about somebody, not about your little square, or trying to protect your little square all the time. Then what have you won? It's always going to be you against the world, because you can't live in this world by yourself. You can't have a world that exists with just, you can create it in your mind, but that's not real life. And I said all that to say, I've kind of gone off on a tangent, but I'm saying there's too much emphasis. I see too many people carrying on and fighting with other people. It's to the point they can't even have a conversation with somebody. They can't, if somebody, but see, the thing about it is, in terms of, this is really no different than what liberals do. If you're saying you're on one side of this side or that side, it's no different. You got liberals sticking up for, stepping in front of black people when they try to talk to somebody, and on the other hand, you got a black person that's challenging somebody on the right that's actually supporting another black person. It's the damnedest time I've never seen anything like it. I once had a family member that said once, she said, I wonder if God ever thought, if he ever imagined how much trouble it would cause to have so many different people of different backgrounds, with the races really be, was that really going to be such a problem, to have so many races of people? Did he know that? I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, it's just not real. It's not reality. And that's what I find, many people they just cannot, they are inconvenienced by reality. And it's like, at some point, either somebody in their family did them a great disservice by brainwashing them into thinking that they can create worlds in which only They can only be around this the same people that look like them. It's just not going to happen. It's not. I don't think it's been done before. I really don't. If you're going to be great, as they say, as I've heard, if you're going to be great, you're going to have to be great for everybody, because this is not your world alone. You cannot live in this world alone. You can't live on this planet alone, and you cannot carve out a world in which you don't interact with all of the people and all of the colors of the world. It's just not going to happen. And somebody's always going to be the majority, and somebody's always going to be the minority. The other thing is when I know I play this clip, this little funny paper, from the equality and equity. The thing is, can you even, when you think about just, can you just even think of, like, if you stick your arms out, are both of your arms the same length? There's just things about life that are not equal. I mean, this thing sounds like an oversimplification, but then if you just think about it, are we the exact same every day? Do we even use the exact same amount of effort every single day to do the exact same things? There's no way. Why is that expected? Why is it anticipated? If you grow up in a home, you're not even, kids aren't even treated equally amongst their parents. But then somehow the government is supposed to make that happen. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. It's just, I just think that life hits people, so it hits you so much harder when you're not existing in reality, and when you are controlled by one word, or you've got so much emotional attachment. Now, I'm sorry, I went off on a total rant there, but I thank you guys for entertaining me. Let me just read something. There's some more irony coming, and it's not coming from me. But I'm just saying, I'm sick of seeing all of this infighting, and it's getting nowhere. It's just, I don't know. It's like, to me, like I said, it seems like we're always in a loop. We're always in an election cycle. We're always in a holding pattern. In the meantime, people are just, you know, fighting over here, and really just not really it's not a good look. I don't care who you think you're defending or what you're defending. It's not a good look, and it's not mature, and we've got too many issues, and it's really quite disheartening to see. I want to say hello to Old Head Deuce. Thank you so much. And Joseph Francis Burden, thanks so much for coming in. And he says, I'm currently reading How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. The guy is obsessed with racial identity to a level I have never experienced before. It sounds fanatical. He also says he demands that white people collectivize behind a white identity in order to fight white supremacy. Every perceived racial inequity is caused by one and only one variable: racism. To claim any other cause is in itself racist by definition. Ibram X. Kendi is making a fortune off of this. He recently charged our school district $200,000 for a keynote address at an anti-racist training seminar. I mean, it's predictable. Joseph Francis Burden says it is divisive, hateful, and dangerous. I can't stand it. It's just, that's all we're doing right now. That's all we're doing. It's dismal, it's exhausting, and there's no end to it. It just seems like, just when you think, like, at some point, I don't know when it would die down. Would they ever let it go? Because they're just deconstructing everything. Just deconstructing everything, and where are we going with this? And I'm saying, was it going to end up like, are we going to end up, splitting the country into multiple pieces just based on the groups? Is that what they want? Is that what they want? I mean, I will say, I think we've been working up to this. I will say that much. I think we've been working up to this for some time. However, it's no less painful or no less, dismal. Old Head Deuce says, Be patient. You know why? They will eventually have to explain themselves. Well, they can't and they won't. They will just go to a straw man argument, and that's all you'll have. They'll just switch it up and say, "Oh, you're just," they'll just call you a racist, or just call you, you say you have white privilege, or they'll just say something like that, or they'll call you a coon, or the usual suspects. You can't talk about anything if you say anything about Second Amendment, or anything pertaining to rights. They start, oh, are you promoting violence? And you just can't. Those are, to me, those are the biggest buzzwords. What is it? Racist and violence. And you just notice that the things that they're attacking people with right now, it's all the same formula, right? Same formula. And Old Head Deuce says, okay, since you want answers, avoid extremes, excess, and complacency. Watch your personal conduct. Okay, you said that was before. Okay. Well, Old Head Deuce, you're always. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming in. So yeah, so there again, I'm just saying I have seen, and I'm saying this is coming from, whether it's content creators or whether it's, yeah, I'm seeing just so much fighting, and I'm like, what is this doing? I mean, I've been sick of hearing from some people for a long time, and it's just like one or two people that just kind of stay on the lips of everyone, and it's just, I'm sick of that. If you don't like what these people have to say, then stay away from them. Just stay away. Just tune out. You don't even have to unsubscribe. Just turn off the alerts, and you won't get it. But there's something that keeps you going back there. You need to think about that. There's something that keeps you going back there. And I think if you dealt with that, then you might start to see, then you might come up with some other questions as to, why do you keep going back to this person's page and their content if it's really putting you in that place? And you can't be absolutely butthurt over every single thing somebody says. It's not real. All right, so I have been rambling for 22 minutes and 34 seconds. I'm going to read one more comment, and then I'll get you the nuggets, the nuggets of the moonlight. According to this is many years ago, I escaped from a dangerous apocalyptic religious cult. The anti-racist stuff exhibits every feature found in these cults: unquestioned authority, collective guilt. Very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Confession of sin, original taint of sin, penitent behavior. Well, what is it that we're doing right now? What was it? Shout out to Derek C. Williams. What is this? It's this whole sins of the father kind of a bit that we're on. I said that I said not too long ago that we're in the model. Well, I think we're in the model, but it's like the Planet of the Apes model or something like that. Like, we're in the model, and we're in the model of the sins of the father right now. Which father are you picking? It's just, I mean, there's a lot of great work works to be read, whether it's the Thomas Sowell book, just even the origins, the word slave and where it comes from. It's actually Slav. It's not even, I think some people literally think that everything that's oppressive, or everything that's, they think it was all tailor made, all materialized just out of the US of A. Or, not that I'm defending any form of enslavement. No, that's not what I'm doing. But I'm just saying, at what point, I think, rather than wallowing in something like, pity or sorrow or victimhood, you can honor people by moving forward and being the best you can be, and presenting your best self every single day. It's not honorable to sit around moping and crying and whining. It's not. It's just not. Now, if that's harsh, You got to pick up, pick yourself up, deal with it. It's not an honorable thing to do. I mean, like at some stage you should be able to stand on some type of be able to honor these, you know, recognize inhumanity and yeah, but get to a stage in which you can move on and start to honor those ancestors. When are you going to honor them? If you cry long enough, what are you doing? So you would just think that it's like, okay, I'm not 400 years old. Joseph Francis Burton says, "Good night, all. Thank you for yeah, it's kind of a rant, right? It is that. It is that. But like I said, this is dismal. This is a very sad place. It's a very sad state to be in. That all we can talk about right now. We've got 99 problems, but we are just on and on and on and on and on and on. And these elite schools, they are just lapping it up. It's looking like a joke. It really is. Any type of at this point, the exploitation it's like a joke. Like nobody's gonna take you seriously with a dollar sign attached to this stuff now, with the amount of dollars that are being thrown at this right now. I'm surprised people aren't becoming desensitized. But people are. But it's not the ones that should be desensitized by it. I'm not saying that they are. So I'm going to get off of that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So I do have a nugget or two, and this is going to be shared. It's coming from Atlanta. So Atlanta seems to be a little bit in the news these days, and I think Buckhead is the subject. Is kind of the subject. So we're going to take this liner from frontpagemag.com. Quote, "Inside every progressive is a totalitarian screaming to get out." All right. Take that. So what I'll do is I'll give you full screen on this. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're not sure if you're coming in, I appreciate you for being a nice voyeur. Okay, so I'm going to give you the full scale here. Thanks so much for tuning in. And then I have something else interesting that I found very interesting. We're not going to listen to the entire thing, but it's actually coming out of California. A pastor, and I think he's pretty gutsy. So let's go with this one first. Okay, the small secessions of the new Civil War. Neighborhoods secede from cities, cities from counties, counties from states. Okay, so according to this, Daniel Greenfield, a Shillman Journalism Fellow at the Freedom Center, is an investigative journalist and writer focusing on the radical left and Islamic terrorism. That a battle over Atlanta would play nearly as pivotal a role in the country's second civil war as it did in the first might have surprised few historians. What might have surprised them is that the battle would involve civic meetings rather than bullets. There are plenty of bullets in Buckhead, a part of Atlanta coping with runaway crime under the pro-crime rule of Mayor Keisha Bottoms. And those bullets have inspired local residents to secede and form their own police force. Buckhead is not the first part of Atlanta to try and secede. Sandy Springs had already successfully seceded from Atlanta, and a number of cities in Fulton County, which includes Atlanta, have tried to break away to form Milton County. These efforts to escape the blight and corruption of Atlanta aren't new, but Buckhead's fight to escape Atlanta's pro-crime government has captured the imagination of millions of Americans from one coast of the country to the other. The Cold Civil War is being shaped not by national but local secessions like the one in Buckhead, as neighborhoods try to secede from cities, cities from counties, and counties from states, in a powerful struggle by conservative and centrist communities to define their own way of life. Most Americans might associate Roswell with UFOs, but a proposed bill by Senator Cliff Purtle of Roswell would have allowed it and other counties located near Texas to secede with the possible intention of joining the Lone Star State. In Oregon, 7 counties voted to secede and join Idaho. Weld County is considering seceding from Colorado to join Wyoming, and western Minnesota has proposals for its counties to leave and unite with South Dakota. Secession talk isn't new. Northern California have kept their dream of a breakaway state alive, named Jefferson alive for generations. The Democrat machine illegally suppressed a ballot measure that proposed to split California in three. The secession proposals that secede are modest and limited in scope. Breaking up states may be a moonshot. Seceding from states might be an uphill battle, but the rate of local secessions is growing rapidly. The most popular form of secession is also the smallest and involves school districts. An average of 5 school districts secede every year. And while some secessions may get less publicity than plans to split up entire states, they're commonplace and effective. They also represent the same trend of communities escaping the social and political wreckage of urban rule. Even as Democrats go to war against the suburbs are fighting back. The political geography of the new Civil War is a tug of war between Democrats seeking to concentrate authority in as few places as possible and opposition seeking independence. While Democrats and their media complain about the Electoral College and the composition of the Senate, the nation and its states are largely ruled by a handful of metropolitan areas. The wealth that buys and sells elections nationwide mostly flows out of New York and California, and more specifically out of New York City and Silicon Valley. Geographic regions of less than 1,000 square miles is in total rule a nation of 3.8 million square miles with an economic fist. The meltdown of the urban areas drove suburbanization and the spreading blight of urban areas into suburban communities due to the concentration of statewide political power in the cities has led to a secondary exodus from suburban bedroom communities to other states. California not only went blue, but it blued Colorado, Wyoming, and a range of other states. The final casualty of California's blue wave may even end up being Texas. New York has had a similar effect, not only regionally, but even to the south, driving an exodus to Atlanta. The tide of blue state invasions has the potential to transform the state of states and the nation. Neighborhood and school districts seceding from failed urban centers are trying to halt the problem at its source. Rural counties, especially in western states, are pushing back against larger demographic invasions that have transformed smaller states into miniature Californias. Polls show that most people prefer to live in communities with people that share their values. As politics become more tribal, the number of neighborhoods with an even share of lawn signs for both parties is decreasing. In a political system that forces cake makers to bake cakes, indoctrinates elementary school students with radical views on race and sexuality, and cancels anyone who doesn't go along, coexistence with radical leftist system is no longer an option. Secession is the new Civil War. Secession is the new Civil War is being fought locally. It's not a regional movement, but a communal one. What brings together rural areas and suburban communities is a desire to control their own way of life and escape the destructive centralization of urban regimes. The new Civil War isn't being fought between the North and the South, but between cities and the rest of the country. It's an economic and social war whose objective is independence. That's why the smallest scale secessions have paradoxically been the most successful. Whether it's the Buckhead movement or the Texas Senate passing a bill allowing Lake Austin residents to secede from Austin, only to see it die in the House, the secessions are gathering strength. but so is the left's battle to stop them through lies, racism smears, and judicial fiat. Just because the public votes to create a separate school district or a city doesn't mean that it won't be blocked by activist judges who decide to override the will of the people. The attempt by Gardendale to secede from the failed Jefferson County public school system in Alabama was illegally blocked by federal judges. The left is struggling to block the creation of the city of St. George in Louisiana with equally illegal lawsuits. But the pace of secession proposals is only growing as more communities struggle to escape abusive governments. And Democrats seek to illegally rig elections across the country with H.R. 1 to transform the government city of Washington, D.C. into a state and to exercise total control over every local decision through its massive urban bureaucracy. The rate of secession is only increasing. Some only seek to restore control over local schools, police forces to communities, while others strive to reconfigure the borders of states to enable rural representation. Though the term secession and the idea of dividing a land summons to mind civil war, the apt analogy may be the original secession of the United States from British rule. Quote, when in course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, end quote, Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence. American revolutionaries wanted self-government on their own terms. Their modern descendants are breaking away from New York and San Francisco, from big tech and Wall Street, the way that their ancestors sought to escape from London and its mercantile interest. The fundamental issue at stake in the secession is whether communities will be governed centrally or locally. Democrats and their media have worked to cloud the issue with false accusations of racism, but it's not only white neighborhoods that are talking secession. A generation ago, Black Boston residents proposed to create the breakaway city of Mandela. The movement has recently come in for reexamination. It's time to reexamine all of them. The new generation of secessionism is driven by the unbearable pressure imposed on communities by expansive ideological programs of radical leftist technocrats, which leave little room for either individuality or human needs. Rather than learning from the profound failures of urban areas during the pandemic, all they learned is a need for greater control. Secession is the natural human response to the control freak madness of cities which control entire states. Communities are confronting radical power grabs by taking back the power. The cold civil war is being fought in civic meetings. The battles are local and the battle maps cover streets rather than continents. But it is a conflict driven by the impetus of revolutions and civil wars in which one people, as Jefferson wrote, seeks to part ways with another, not to rule over them, but to be free of their thievery, their abuses, and their tyrannical rule. Well, I think they're on to something there. Got some people here. How are you guys doing? Thanks so much. You guys kind of snuck in here. How are you? Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And who we have? We have Risen Ability. How are you? Thanks so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And Risen Ability says, lol, the ad next to the text about prosecuting Donald Trump for his many crimes is comical. I didn't even see that. And hi, Zero the Infinite. How are you? And he also says, make sure that you hit. I appreciate that. And Zero the Infinite says, had a greater need to control. Interesting. Yeah, I don't see that going away. I don't see that, dissolving anytime soon. Hi, Awesome Alice. I would love to see from the insanity. Wonder how the Amish did it. Okay, so now you're kind of segueing me into the next piece that I have for you. The next piece that I have for you is actually kind of what I'm calling looks like a minister or pastor rather from California he's a little bit fed up and he's got something to say. So I'm going to share that with you. And actually that's going to come from our friends over at, I think that's coming from my friends over at the JBS. So I will be right back and we will jump right into it. We won't do the whole thing, but it's interesting the way the bun and lettuce kind of thing that he puts on this. And I know it's kind of nice to hear it. It's interesting to hear this from a pulpit, considering considering the previous laws on speaking on political issues inside of churches. So we'll go to that in just a second, and I'll be right back, guys.
This segment of our show is brought to you by our good friends at the John Birch Society. Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. The JBS is a constitutional and educational organization that's been around for over 60 years, dedicated to upholding and defending the Constitution and working to preserve our freedoms and liberties in this country. The JBS does not endorse any political party or candidates. Rather, it focuses on the education, training, and development of the American voters.
All right, so I do have a video clip for you. So let's go to it right now. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Thank you so much, Awesome Alice, for coming in. Yeah, it would be nice to secede from, dare I say, the wokeness and all the months of the affirmation months and the 18th and it's crazy town, right? So what we're going to do is I will share that. So I'm going to share this next screen with you guys. Okay, so we'll see what we can get from this message. But I'm only going to do about 5 minutes of it max because it's pretty long. It's pretty lengthy, but I think there's a few things, at least at the beginning, that you might be able to relate to. Okay, so what you see before you is from the JBS, and this one is entitled "Government Now," quote, "greatest threat," end quote, to U.S., warns Pastor MacArthur. Now, this is penned by the Alex Newman from the JBS or from the TNA. And so of course you guys have heard some of the rhetoric or whatnot, threats. So I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let him talk. And in fact, I'll let him give you just a little bit of bun and lettuce if you can handle it. All right. You guys ready? We're going to blast off into this one. Let's see, I'm trying to give you too much bun and lettuce on the top here. Let's see.
But we were not. I have obviously tried to address through the last year and a half almost the issues that confront us in the country that we live in the world that we live in the times that we live in. But I thought there's one final message that I would like to lay upon you, and that's what's come together this morning. It has many components and many parts, and it may test your attention span a little bit. When we first decided to meet as a church, it's been a year now, and to do that without regard to what the government was telling us to do, there was a lot of criticism. That criticism came from evangelical leaders, pastors, bloggers, writers, friends, foes, just about everywhere. But we were not dissuaded in any sense from doing what we did. The Lord has demonstrated to us that we were lied to. I think whatever the issues are in the world, the church is the only hope of the world. Now, I want to see if I can't, from the Word of God, pull together some things that will help you to understand why this is our position. And I want this because I think in the future, for those who are younger than I am, maybe I'll live to see some of it. This resolve to be the church when the government wants to shut you down is going to be tested again. And it's going to be tested at a much more aggressive level. There were many churches that failed this test, and there will be many who will fail the next one. But the true church follows Christ, not the government. Our president said in the last month that the greatest threat to America, he said on one occasion, is systemic racism, which doesn't exist. He said white supremacy, which doesn't exist with any power. And then he said global warming, which doesn't exist either. And if it does, God's in charge of it. In reality, the greatest threat to this nation is the government. The government. And I want to show you how we are to understand that. Turn to Romans 13. Romans 13.
All right, guys. So I just thought I would just give you a little bit of that nugget. I don't know what these algorithms, how they handle, scripture. I've been told, or at least I've heard that, they don't really quite like scriptures being quoted or whatnot. But this does kind of wrap me into the whole, the Johnson Act is what I was thinking of right away. And, I think this past election, I'm not sure. I think it came up again. And I think maybe there was some way to subvert or to kind of get around it and make it where people could actually, could speak about, political issues without having that risk of having their 501c's being revoked or whatnot, not having that have that retaliation or paying the price, paying the consequence. Because I think back in the 60s, what was it? LBJ, he didn't want you talking about things then. So there was a bit of control there, because I would think right off, that's a bit of a violation as well, right? You're controlled. You don't have your free. It's not a full freedom of speech there if they can tell you what you can discuss, or if you do this, then this is the consequence for speaking about political positions or supporting or endorsing or opposing political candidates. But I think they did some work. Maybe the previous administration did some work in which I think this is possible. I'm not familiar with this church or anything. It's not a church that I'm affiliated with or anything. It's just that I found it interesting that he would even approach it, and then for him to reference it or to support his argument with a scriptural reference. So I went ahead and turned that off for you AI algorithmites out there. So thank you guys so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And awesome Alice. Okay, absolutely. Yes, I will do it. Let me do it. Let's see. Okay, I will put it there for you. Thanks so much for coming in, guys. I know it's 11th hour, but sometimes 11th hour streams are not so bad. So yes, awesome, Al. So there you can go You can go there to find, watch the entire video if you want. And I haven't done it myself, but I just thought it was very interesting that it's there. I mean, I might even, what I can do right now is I can cross-reference the actual, more of the article, but when he goes into the scriptures, I think that's something that's, I don't know what they're doing on Facebook or YouTube, but, they're kind of controlling everything. So you can get that there, the entire speech, the entire, I guess, what it's a sermon, perhaps. But yes. So let me give you a little bit more full scale on this one, and I will round this one out. I thank you guys so much for tuning in to this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate it, and I want to give you the full scale just for viewership. Okay, so let's just get out of the bun and lettuce here for a second. Okay, so according to this, I'm going to give you the quote from here. Maybe I'll just quote this. I'll just quote a little bit of it. He does cite the Romans and Romans 13, but he also says here specifically, in short, they are now doing the opposite of what they are supposed to be doing. Instead of punishing evil and protecting good, government in America is increasingly punishing good and rewarding evil. Quote, the role of the government is to restrain evil. And when it functions to restrain evil, it is fulfilling its God-ordained purpose. That was from Pastor MacArthur. That was his explanation. And he is citing the Romans 13, the verses 1 and 2. Plus en plus, more and more there. And so, yeah, I think I'm sure you'll find it interesting. It's on some level if you looking for a different perspective. But yeah, I just kind of want to point that out. I found that interesting that it's there, and it's good if they have alleviated if they've taken the muzzles off of the churches, so that they can speak about things so they can speak about good and evil. Just saying. So they can speak about it and not be punished or lose their 501c. But I find that ironic, considering the amount of NAACP representatives that were entering churches back in the 60s, that they would have this Johnson Act. Because if they were influencing and going out and basically, coercing the churches and the congregations into voting for that party back in the day. So it's interesting that they would have the Johnson Act and figure out a way to punish people. But as I'm sure, as long as you're speaking about it in their way with their narrative, it was, you could get around it back then. But now we'll see what happens. Yeah, but see, I think even back last year, it looks like I want to be clear about this, but it does. The Washington Post had an article last year that talked about Trump shifts the claim that, quote, we got rid of the Johnson Amendment. I think he probably had about a 2-minute clip on that. He vowed to repeal the Johnson Amendment because he said it infringes on freedom of speech of religious groups. Okay, so I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not sure where that is, but if any of that restriction or restraints, if those have been lifted, then maybe that's the reason that, this pastor, he's out of California. He's in a position to address his congregation with the message. So as always, I thank you guys so much for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And of course, they're going to say he claims, but I will just read this bit here. And I don't know, Washington Post is not my vetted source, but however, the facts. Section 501c3 of the U.S. tax codes grants tax exempt status to nonprofit groups such as charities, universities, and religious organizations. But these tax exempt groups, quote, are absolutely prohibited from directly and indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. Quote, contributions to political campaign funds or public statements of position, verbal or written, made on behalf of the organization in favor of or in opposition to any candidate for public office clearly violate the prohibition against political campaign activity, the IRS advises. Quote, violating this prohibition may result in denial or revocation of tax exempt status and the imposition of certain excise taxes, end quote. Despite these stark warnings, the prohibition is seldom enforced by the IRS and widely disregarded by clergy. Moreover, the leaders of the 501c3 organizations remain free to support or oppose candidates in their personal capacities. They also are allowed to speak about political issues on behalf of their organizations, short of endorsing or opposing particular candidates for office. So, yeah, of course, you can get into the weeds of that all you want, but I admire the churches that actually kind of go after these things, because I think everybody else has been kind of doubt, for the lack of a better word, bought and paid for. So their message is going to be for the ruling class. And in that case, I'm referring to Democrats or the leftist, or, during that time period, or during whichever is applicable. But I think that's actually probably a good, there's probably a lot of message, a lot of good pieces in that sermon, if you will. But let's see, the name, at least the name of the church, as people probably from the place that you least expect it to have something like that coming out of California. I think that's all right. It's, that's real. And it's at Grace Community Church. I'm not sure where that's located, but it's in SoCal, so it's a mega church. And so yeah, there you go. But yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I'm going to be wrapping up this segment, but I'm going to first take a break to say thanks to our loyal patrons and subscribers and yourself, and then I will come through the chat to say salute and wish you guys a great night, great morning. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will be right back. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. I really appreciate you guys so much for coming in. All right, thank you so much. And I don't know, I see, maybe I'll open this up just for a second to see if anybody wants to chime in, or yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So just give your usual 3 to 5. I usually say 3 to 5 minutes. And yeah, here we go. And if we don't have any takers, I will be saying salute to everyone in the meantime. So, to start with our first person in for this nugget on our Moonlight stream. It's Old Head Deuce. Thank you so much for tuning in, for coming in. I really appreciate it. Joseph Francis Burton, thank you so much for coming in and for sharing your experience with us. And looks like we have Risen Ability. Thank you so much for coming in. And Zero the Infinite, thank you so much for coming in, as well as Awesome Alice. You're doing well out there, Awesome Alice. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys so much for coming in on this segment. It's an 11th hour, but I'm managing to call it a Moonlight stream. Yeah, same operator. Totally the same operator. Okay. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. And of course, I look forward to seeing you guys on the next live stream, in the comment section on a video, or a night Q, Moonlight stream, you name it. Yeah, or Real Under, or taking a break. Yeah, so I appreciate you guys so much for coming in, and have a great rest of your Monday/Tuesday. And thanks so much for entertaining the rant, the opening rant.